The power comes directly into your contactor, as shown here. Okay, and you have your coil down here. Then you have your three-phase power out. It's going to your solid state relays. These are dual controlled solid state relays. So what that means is one side will operate one element and the other side will operate the other. And in the center is your low voltage input or low voltage control over your solid state relay output of the high voltage. On a 6-lane grill there are 3, and on a 4-lane grill there are 2. They are on a heat sink. Behind the solid state relay, it's going to be your temperature or your power conversion board. Okay, right here, that's your power conversion board, and that's taking your line voltage in, taking 24 volts DC out. And that's going to go over to your SIB board. To replace your contactor, 4 bolts here, unwire it, rewire it, and place it back in. On this slide that you see here, all these components, what you can do is you loosen this here, back in the front of the unit. Take these 3 nuts off. They're a welded stud. And at this point, this whole panel that you see right here will come out in one assembly. Keep in mind, you do have some wires that are connected to your elements. And if I'm looking in here, I can see here we have a Molex connection right here. And we have another Molex connection over here. Now let me go on the other side and show you some other wires that you will have to disconnect in order to pull that panel all the way out. You do have your thermocouple leads back here. They are long enough that you can pull the panel out to gain access to replace this board or any other component that might be in there. Keep in mind when you're working on this unit, the unit must be unplugged while you're working on it for the simple reason, if you look up here, we have element wires leading down and you're going to have some power up there. When you pull that panel out, you will need to disconnect the high limit circuit. There's a spade connection right here. It's on the brown wire, and then you see how it goes up. It goes into the 1 high limit, comes back out, and it goes into the other high limit, the center one, comes back down, goes over to the other high limit, and it comes back down through the yellow wire, back up to the other side of the coil, the contactor. To replace a thermocouple, it's best to do it from the rear. You have better access. Make sure you have the power turned off. Come on up in here, with the power off and disconnected. It's a bayonet. Push up, turn. As you can see the spring, and it just pulls out, and here you go. This is your thermocouple. Got the same thermocouple for each holding lane. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lanes. That thermocouple is also the same thermocouple used in the Platin for the express grills. It's the same size thermocouple. In a pinch, you can always use one of those. Once you find it, push it all the way up and turn a quarter turn, and it locks it in place. And then make sure your thermocouple leads, once you're done, are not against the element wire. Just move it over out of the way. Let's take a closer look at what's going on here. This, on a normal clamshell grill, you'd have a ribbon cable that goes down to a solid state relay board. In this grill, we don't have a solid state relay board. Again, we have solid state relays. They are dual action, so each relay will operate 2 elements. And you have your low voltage in over the high voltage outputs. This board right here is a simulator for the solid state relay board that's communicating and sending signals back to your SIB, which is right here, making sure that everything is working right. Your SIB will work the same as any other SIB, with the exception we have an extra board on here that simulates the solid state relay board. We have no motor circuit. We still have our 24 volts power in. And we still have our thermocouples over here, and they are indeed color coded. If I were to look at the wire diagram, and I take a look at these numbers right here on the wires, I can tell you which ones go to what solid state relay and the voltage coming out. Make sure that this is properly seated, top and back, front and back on the SIB. Again, you have your power conversion board here, right here in front of my fingers. That's your power conversion board, power in, and 24 volts DC out. Okay, we're going to take out this bottom panel right here to show you how to get to the components easier. What we first must do is disconnect the thermocouples from the bayonets up underneath the griddle plate. As you can see here, there's thermomastic compound on them. Okay, and just pull them out and they're bayonet style. Again, it's a 6-lane grill, so there's 6 lanes. Make sure when they drop down, this thermomastic compound does not get on any of the control components or any of the leads. So let's put that off to the side. And I have another one over here that I already disconnected. I'm just gonna go ahead and push it over here away from all my electronics. The next thing you need to do is you need to disconnect your front control panel. This is your front on-off switch. You gotta disconnect your communications cable for your SIB to your UI. And at that point, I just pulled my whole panel to the left off of my hinges and I set it aside in a safe location. And then from here, I'm going to take off my 3 nuts. I've already have them loosened. So let me finish this one. And in the back, we have 3 nuts here that we want to go ahead and loosen. So our clamp is loosened. So we can slide our whole front panel forward. All right, once we loosen those 3 nuts, we're gonna have to disconnect our power coming into our contactor. So again, power is unplugged and turned off the unit. Okay. And what I usually do if I don't have a wire diagram, before I remove it, I will write down the wire numbers or colors of where they go. So we have blue, red, and then black. Okay, that pulls them out of the way. That gets rid of your 3-phase power coming into the unit. And now we have to disconnect our high limit because the high limits are stationary. They do not come out the pan. So right here, power coming in, the 1 lead brown wire goes to one side of your high limit. After it goes through all your other high limits, there's 1 per 2 lanes. It's gonna come back down in yellow to the other side of the coil of the contactor. Now my high limits are disconnected. At this point here, I can go to the front of the unit and pull my panel out of the way. Now that I'm back in the front of the unit, I'm just gonna move my nuts so I don't lose them. I'm just gonna simply lift up and pull the whole assembly forward using care. And at that point, you're gonna look back and you're gonna see there's 2 more Molex connections that are connected. You have this Molex connection right here, and you have the one on the other side, and they are different colors. Now with both Molex connections disconnected, I'll be able to pull this whole assembly out of the grill and onto a table to work on it. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna pause this and take it right on over to the table. Now let's talk about how those solid state relays get the low voltage control. Okay, you got this wire harness right here, and you can see the wires on here. They are the low voltage inputs to control the AC outputs on your solid state relays. Again, this SIB board is the same board that's used in clamshell grills or similar. This connection right here, if I were to disconnect it here and disconnect it here, I can pull my ribbon cable up. Again, as you notice, as you do that, the ribbon cable comes up. Be very careful and gentle so you don't rip it. And you can see there's a 26-pin ribbon cable, and it connects into here. Make sure when you connect it back in, all those pins are not bent over, damaged, and they line up correctly. This board that we're looking at is, again, the solid state relay simulator. And then this connects in the bottom as well. So push it back in. As I push it in, notice the tabs come in, and then just go ahead and clip it back in a little tighter. And at that point, you should be good and nice and tight. Just double check it, push it down a little bit more. To replace the SIB simulator, again, just connect the low voltage outputs, disconnect your ribbon cable, and you have 2 screws right here. Now we'll pull this board up and off the other board below it. If you have a problem with an SIB thermocouple related, you can always turn around and take a thermocouple. Again, it's pin push here, pull it out, and then take it and just put it into another location, like so. Swap it. Make sure we don't bend the pins. See how small they are here? So we can get a small look over here. Very small pins. Make sure we don't bend them. And then just go ahead and slide them back in, connect it, and look at your screen to see if the problem followed it. If the problem followed the thermocouple, chances are the thermocouple is bad. If the problem still stayed in this lane, that's going to indicate, again, blue, which was up here. If I look at my diagram, I'm going to look for my blue thermocouple. That's white. My blue thermocouple is my far right lane, number 6 lane. So let's go ahead and reverse that back. Again, if the problem stayed with number 6 lane, it could be a problem with your SIB, or it could be a problem with this board, or it could be the problem within the output side of your solid state relay. To check that, is go ahead and check your output. So again, we got the blue number 6 lane. So if I were looking here, remember the farthest one back is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I'm going to check here to ground, make sure I have power. And then at that point, make sure it's a call for heat's being generated. And I'm going to check here to ground. And if that's the case, I have power out. Then at that point, I can check my element, make sure my element's receiving the power, and make sure my element is good. If my element is not good, then it's a bad element, and it's not in a thermocouple. If I'm not getting power out here, check my low voltage input. Do I have low voltage here? If I do, my solid state relay is bad. So let's go ahead and put these back the way it was. So blue up on top, number 6, and then red under here. And one thing you gotta be careful of when you're doing this, make sure you're not pulling on this, because if I look at this, if I pull on it, see how that connection moves a little bit? Make sure you're not putting any pressure on your yellow and red leads. Just pull them up as you need to. Put the red wire under here, red thermocouple, and then press it in, make sure it clips into place. And there's no pressure on any of the leads. Okay, remember the thermocouples. In a pinch, the size of the thermocouple itself is the same size of the thermocouple that's in a Platin on the Express Grill or the other clamshells. With the exception, your leads are 60 inches instead of 48 inches. So you'll just have longer leads. So in a pinch, you could use a clamshell Platin thermocouple if a thermocouple is bad. Thermomastic compound on here. To replace an SIB, you're going to disconnect your thermocouples. You're going to take screws out. You're going to take off your board, disconnect your ribbon cable, and disconnect your 24 volts in. Move to the side, put the new one on, and assemble in reverse order. To replace your power conversion board assembly, you have to remove this whole shelf in order to do that. When you're out, lift it up, and on the bottom you're going to see two screws. This screw right here and this screw right here will remove your power conversion board assembly. For your solid state relays, same thing here. You have your bolt, and then if I were to flip it up over again, now you can see your nuts there. Then again, your contactor for self-tap, and that takes care of the components inside the staging grill.
Garland, a well-built brand, thanks you for watching this short how-to video.